Everything is guiding each individual simultaneously in this beautiful matrix to help people live authentically. That's what the feedback, that's the big lesson in life.
Welcome to the Food Matters Podcast, your home for health and wellness. My name is James Colquhoun, filmmaker and founder of foodmatters.com, and I am your host on this journey to inner and outer transformation. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a short moment to talk to you about the Food Matters Nutrition Certification Program, because studying nutrition completely changed my life. It helped me to heal my father, get him off 6 different medications, lose 50 pounds, and completely regain and transform his life and health. But the problem is that we're not really taught about nutrition in our schooling system. The medical profession is rarely pronouncing the facts of using nutrition as medicine. And we have a fast food industry that thrives off misleading consumers. So if you're looking to learn about how to use nutrition as medicine to either heal yourself or a loved one or help prevent chronic disease, or you want to take that next step on your study and nutrition journey and become a certified nutrition coach, then the Food Matters Nutrition Certification Program is for you. This is a 10-week or self-paced, internationally accredited certification program designed to take you through some of the most important topics on the latest research when it comes to nutrition and natural healing, including gut healing, autoimmune conditions, balancing hormones naturally, detoxification, biochemical individual approaches to nutrition. Plus, it brings together the best that we know about nutrition science and anthropological research, and bringing these two approaches together to help you cut through the confusion about what to eat and what to avoid for optimum health. To find out more about the Nutrition Certification Program, plus to download your curriculum guide, head to foodmatters.com/study. You can pause this right now. It will only take you 30 seconds. That's foodmatters.com/study, or you can head to the show notes for more information. Have a beautiful day. Hi, everyone. It's James here from Food Matters. And today, my guest is Dr. John Demartini. I have followed his work for many years. When his name first came on my radar, one of the things that surprised me the most about him was the incredible amount of books that he devours on an annual basis. And a gentleman once told me, and I tell this to my kids every night, readers are leaders. And this guy is certainly one of the foremost preeminent experts when it comes to modern personal development theory. Not only is he out there living his ideals, he's also helping many people do the same. He's published and authored over 40 books, which have been translated into 39 languages. Just think about the sheer volume of that work, most of which he does while he's on the road and speaking and doing podcasts like this. And so today we are going to be talking about how your mind and your body connect, how important it is to be living on purpose. This is a topic we speak a lot about at Food Matters with our latest series, Transcendence, and also on Gaia. This idea that the more purposeful you are in your life, the more that your body will align to that. So we're going to be talking about this. And also we're going to be talking about anxiety, depression, and addiction. These are topics that really hit to the heart of modern people living in the modern world. Dr. Demartini, pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I was looking forward to it. So I'm the one blessed. So thank you.
Fantastic. So for people that are not so familiar with your work, how did you get started into personal development and become such an expert in this space with over 40 books published now? I mean, that is an incredible feat.
Well, we've got 10 more coming out. So we got another one just launched out, another one coming out in about a month. So we're got another 10 coming. I started in 1972, and I was in Hawaii at the time, and I met an amazing guy named Paul Bragg. And anybody who's in the health field probably remembers Bragg's amino acids and Bragg's foods and things of this nature. This gentleman one day or one evening inspired me to believe that I could overcome my speech impediment and learning challenges. I had never read a book. I had learning difficulties and speaking problems. And I was a dropout. I was living in a tent at the time, and I was a high school dropout. Actually, I left home at 13. So one night, this one man had a major impact on my life. And what he said made me believe that maybe I could overcome my learning problems and learn how to read and learn how to be intelligent, someday be a teacher. And I had a dream at that time to travel the world and teach out of the blue at night. And 50 years later, in 1 month, it'll be 50 years. 50 years later, still working on it, still cranking on it. So that was where it all started. I was interested in anything to do with mastering life and awareness and potential. And I started taking yoga classes and meditation classes in 72. And I was interested in anything on personal development from that point on.
Amazing. And for people that don't know Paul Bragg, I mean, I've met his daughter, Patricia Bragg. She is a bundle of energy and an incredible woman. And,
amazing lady.
But Paul Bragg was one of the first sort of fitness and personal development experts on TV, would you say, John?
Yeah. Well, anybody in America who remembers Jack LaLanne in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and 2010s and stuff, this guy was an icon in the fitness area. And Paul C. Bragg is the one that inspired him to do that. So that was his mentor. And Patricia and Jack LaLanne knew each other very well. And the story that I read about Jack LaLanne and its impact by meeting with Paul Bragg was almost identical to mine. My life changed the night I met him too. Just like Jack LaLanne, he tells a story about the night he met Paul Bragg and his life changed. Same thing happened to me. And so I can relate to that.
And what do you think it is about that? Because I also feel like I had somewhat of a, let's call it a personal development epiphany. You know, I met Tony Robbins. I became familiar with his work. I later got connected to him through Harvey Diamond, actually, who was sort of a similar, probably vintage to what we're talking about here. And you know, there is this element, which is what you teach as well, is that if you're taught that your mind is limiting your potential, and if you can open your mind's potential, then you can step into this future, almost unlimited potential that is awaiting you. You know, is this what was unlocked for you? What did Paul unlock for you specifically?
He said that we have a body, mind, and soul. Now, the body must be directed by the mind, and mind must be guided by the soul. The soul is the state of unconditional love of an authentic self. And when we're in that state, authentically, we're not exaggerating, not minimizing ourselves, just authentic, our mind is maximal. And that changes the hypothalamus, the autonomics, the epigenetics, the physiology. The wellness quotient goes up. And we maximize our potential there. And he basically said that, you know, it's time to set objectives and goals, not just for ourselves, but our family, our city, our state, our nation, our world, and beyond for 100 to 120 years, and take command of what you think about, what you visualize, what you affirm, what you feel, what you write about, what you act upon. And that's kind of like a personal development journey. I never was told that. I was told in first grade by my first grade teacher in front of my parents, I'm afraid your son has got dyslexia and learning problems. He doesn't know how to read. He can't read. He can't pronounce words properly. I was going to a speech pathologist at a year and a half old. And I just assumed that was real. I just didn't see that was going to be past that. So everybody pushed me into a sport where I could excel physically because I was doing physically there, but not academically. But this guy, I really wanted to be intelligent. I just never thought I could. I just assumed that wasn't going to happen until the night I met him. And then I thought, what I dreamed about is to be able to be someday intelligent. And what was interesting is I sat and he took us through a guided imagery meditation experience and made us go through this guided imagery that he created. And I saw myself suddenly walking through a stoned archway out onto a balcony in front of a big square with 1 million people in it. And I could feel all the people and I started speaking. Strangest thing I ever imagined. Never had anything like that happen. And that painting of what I experienced is sitting in my office today. I had a famous painter paint that to hold that as my vision in my office, A Man on a Mission, it's called. And I held that vision that I would step foot on every country on the face of the earth and share whatever I discovered with people and build a network of people that I could share with. And lo and behold, that 50 years later, I'm still cranking and working on that. And we've reached a lot of people. This is my 5th podcast today. So I reach millions of people a year. I mean, 230 to 250 million a year on average now. So we're constantly going out and reaching, people out there. And that's what the dream was. And I travel the world today. I live on a ship called the World that travels around the world.
Yeah.
I go, I've spoken in 180 countries now. So I'm a firm believer that if you set your mind to do something and you don't give up on it, you just keep pushing on it, everybody else dies out and you end up at the top someday if you just hang in there.
Oh, wow. So fascinating. And I feel like, because one of the discussions I would like to get to today centers around really what happened to my father. So my father was working really hard, pushing up against life, and doing what we're meant to do, go out there, be successful, but he wasn't in flow. He wasn't on purpose. He would come home at night, he would drink, he would, ruminate over clients or things that had happened in his practice, in work. And he was stressed by his work. Now he lives on purpose. Now he's aligned to purpose. And there's been a big shift that's happened in the past 15 years, off medications, regaining his health, aligning to his purpose. But at this time, I could see that in reflection, that his life path was not aligned with some sense of a true purpose or some sense of being in alignment. For people that are listening to this who feel like they're pushing up against life, there's no flow. Maybe they've also got illness in their body. Maybe they also feel that like they're not on purpose. Are these things connected in your opinion?
It's not, it's beyond opinion. Opinion is kind of not where it's at. It's an impossibility to have a change in perception without a change in physiology. The ratio of our perceptions determine the ratio of our transmitter signal molecules, modulators, hormones, and transmitters. And if I have somebody that I want to raise the serotonin levels, I can say certain things to them that support them, that make them feel proud of what they've accomplished, and that serotonin will go up. If I say just the reverse of that, I can make serotonin go down. I can take any transmitter or hormone, I can make it go up and down by having an individual become conscious of what they're unconscious of and change the ratios of their perception and change the neurochemistry. There's no doubt about it. And whenever there's a neurochemistry change, there's a cell receptor change, a cell cascading of enzyme change, there's an epigenetic change, and then there's a protein, of proteins that are either functional or structural proteins that are altered, and then you have cell function difference. And every symptom in the body, whether people realize it or not, is a feedback system trying to guide them to their most authentic self, where they are living by full potential. We're so accustomed to be indoctrinated by a very antiquated, polarized, hedonistic, palliative model of healthcare. It's just ridiculous. I mean, let me give an example so it makes more sense. If you go out and you feel unfulfilled in your life and you're not living by your highest value, you are going to have your blood glucose and oxygen go into your amygdala. And your amygdala has got a nucleus accumbens, and it's going to also give feedback up into the hypothalamus and activate ghrelin instead of leptin, and it's going to make you want to eat as a way of filling something that's not fulfilled psychologically. But when you have something incredibly inspiring to you and very important to you, you don't live to eat, you eat to live. You eat to maximize your performance, to prepare for that great event. If a woman's about to get married, she's not going to overeat the last 10 days before that marriage. But the night of the marriage, once the ceremony's done, boy, she'll pig out and drink and party and stuff like that. But beforehand, she's got too big a mission to not be disciplined with her executive center online. So when you're living by what's highest on your value, your executive center comes online, and you govern the impulses and instincts of the amygdala, which is hedonistic, and it wants to consume and get immediate gratification. And this is where we end up getting sidetracked. And our physiology becomes subjectively distorted when we're in this survival mode as an adrenaline stimulus in order to catch prey and avoid predator. It needs to be accelerated and distorted. But when we're doing something that's meaningful, we don't want to overeat. We don't want to do that. We want to eat to live. We want to eat to perform. We want to maximize our performance because we have something meaningful to do. So if somebody goes out and pigs out and they overeat, that's not random. That's not a random event. It's not that they, oh my God, I just can't control myself. They don't have anything extremely inspiring on their agenda that's filling their day, that's meaningful, because if they do, they won't do that. I've proven that 1,000 times with people. Now, if you overeat, you're going to get gas, bloat, cramps, indigestion, farts, maybe oily skin, maybe a headache, fatigue, maybe nausea, depending on what you eat and how much you eat. And all those symptoms, if you go to the allopathic profession, the typical medical pharmaceutical rep, and you say, hey, I've got this symptom, I got a nausea and I got gas and I've got bloat and I've got this and that, he'll give you an anti-flatulent, an antihistamine, an anti-this and anti-that, which is all palliative and get rid of all the symptoms, which means he's counterbalancing the symptoms. But the symptoms are there as a feedback mechanism to let you know, hey, you're a pig. You overate. You're not doing something meaningful. Wake up. Because if you go out and realize that those symptoms are your friend, not your enemy to get rid of, but your friend to guide you on how to wisely live, if that model is understood, I'm right now in the middle of writing another book, an updated book, a new edition on about 1,000-page text on the correlation between mind and body, on health and the psychology of health. I've been doing it for 45, 46 years. This book has been going on and on and on and on, editing and new editions and stuff. And every symptom of the body is primarily through hypothalamic autonomic responses, through epigenetic changes. And every cell, the sympathetic system makes the fat cells break down, right, to get gluconeogenesis. It makes the glucagon goes up. It makes insulin go down. It makes thyroid go up. It makes thyroid go down. These are predictable behaviors. And if we see an excess of those things, we just say, oh, we've got some sort of disease and we need a drug to counterbalance it. No, there's a psychological driving mechanism causing those together that are stored in the subconscious mind that haven't been neutralized. And anytime you infatuate with something and conscious of the upsides and unconscious the downsides, or resentful to something and conscious the downsides, unconscious the upsides, as long as you hold on to those lopsided perceptions, you're going to store that in the subconscious mind, which is basically facilitation, inhibition of neurotransmitters and trans cells. And it will store there and reverberate and create, in a sense, chronic illness until you balance it. And if you understand what the message of the body is saying and know what questions to ask, you can actually go back and rebalance the perception, bring yourself back onto mission and purpose in life, and the symptoms take care of themselves. And the body's doing its job again. And we're just so much into taking a pill for every ill and getting a quick, immediate, gratifying thing to get rid of symptoms, and instead of letting the symptoms guide you. You know, if you're depressed, you're comparing your current reality to a fantasy that you're expecting life to be that's not real. So the depression's not an illness. It's a friggin' feedback to try to let you know to you're going in a path that's not authentic, and you're setting up a amygdala-based fantasy about life, expecting something to be one-sided, or expecting people to live in your values, or expecting yourself to live in somebody else's values. Those symptoms are real feedback systems. But we aren't taught applied physiology and applied psychology to understand the meanings of these things. And man, I think that's crazy. I think people deserve to know what's really going on in their physiology so they can reclaim their power.
Absolutely.
Not give it away to some false attribution bias.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I mean, I think this is quite a big statement here. Essentially, you're saying that if someone is suffering from an illness, autoimmune condition, which is the body attacking itself, right? Which is rife in the domesticated modern world, or obesity, or another form of chronic illness. At some level, there is a misalignment with their life on a body-mind connection, on a purpose, on a mission direction, and that those symptoms are guiding us to wake up and take a step deeper towards what it is we're meant to be doing on planet Earth.
Yeah. Everything that goes on in life is on the way, not in the way. And it's a feedback. the introceptive internal body and the extroceptive heterotelic responses from society and things around us, everything that's going on is trying to homeostate us. And people don't get that. If you get cocky and self-righteous, and arrogant, puff yourself up and exaggerate yourself and think that you know better than other people and project your values onto them and expect them to live in your shoulds, and they criticize you and reject you and ridicule you and put you down, that's not because they're toxic people. They're doing what society is designed to do for somebody who's an arrogant prick that needs to be brought down into equilibrium so they can be real again, to get them back on authenticity. And so society is actually in your favor and people don't get it. But people are addicted with the amygdala in their lower value structures. They want praise without reprimand. They want nice without mean. They want kind without crude. They want a one-sided fantasy world. And then when somebody criticizes them, they think, oh, they're toxic, I got to avoid them. And the very person that's basically criticizing may be your friggin' mentor without you realizing it. They're trying to teach you how to be yourself and to learn how to communicate respectfully with equity and equanimity with people. And so authenticity is not pride. It's not shame. It's true love. It's a blend of reflective awareness where you can realize that the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same. You don't have people on pedestals of pitch. You have them in your heart. And you're graced by the presence of these individuals and respectfully communicate what you love in terms of what they love. There's the mastery, and that heals. And that doesn't create symptoms.
I love that. And so for people listening, this idea of discovering purpose can be quite broad. I mean, my personal take on it, I'd like to hear if you feel I'm on track here, is in my experience, because I've gone from driving the type of ship that you're living on now. I used to be a ship's officer, tankers, container ships, passenger ferries, private yachts, all around the world. And I loved it, but I felt there was something more that I was destined to do. So I studied nutrition. I helped heal my father, which was this big sense of purpose in my life, to be this healing light for the person that gave me life. And then gone on to made 5 feature documentaries around health and nutrition and wellness. And now this is defines who I am, and I feel on purpose. And I feel on purpose because I feel like I'm giving back. Is this the secret to purpose? To be giving, to be sharing information, to be helping others? Is that the secret here? And is that a good place for people to start if they're confused about where to start?
That's a great portion of it. Every human being has a set of priorities, a set of values that they live their life by, things that are most to least important, that's fingerprint specific to them, that's evolving as they evolve, but at any one moment, it's a set of priorities. Whatever is highest on that priority list is the most intrinsic value, and whatever is lower as you go down the list, it becomes more and more extrinsic. So the things that are at the top, you spontaneously are inspired to do. You feel you're in the flow that you don't need to be reminded to do it. Nobody has to remind me for 50 years to teach and research and write. That's just me. I mean, I don't need motivation. You don't have, Johnny, go do your teaching, research, and writing. No one's had to tell me that. But anything other than that, I would need motivation. And I learned that anytime I have motivational needs in any way extrinsically, delegate it. So I don't do anything else. If I find that I have resistance to doing something, need to be reminded to do it, I hire somebody who loves doing that and let them take care of it for me so I don't have to be distracted. So I get on to doing teach, research, and write as I travel the world. That's it. Everything else is delegated. I don't cook. I don't drive. I don't clean. I don't do anything except teach, research, and write. That's it. I mean, I even tell my girlfriend, I said, look, if I can get, George Clooney or Brad Pitt or Gerard Butler or Hugh Jackman to make love with you on my behalf, would you allow me to do that? Because I need to delegate that tonight. I've never had her say anything except I would love you even more. because delegation is cool, man. You know, that's a joke, by the way. I just talked to her just before we got on.
I know. And look, delegation is something that you need. It is a skill that takes time to learn. I mean, I did a test at our office with one of our board members called a Flippin profile, and it highlights your constraints as an entrepreneur in a team. So it gives you a 360 review of your personality as a leader. And one of my elements was low deference, a low capability to defer to people for ideas or to defer projects to people. So the last 5 years, I worked on that constraint. I got better at it. And now I do more of what I'm aligned to, which is content, meetings, connecting people, big high level vision. And I have a great team around me. But I've done this for 15 years now. You've been doing this for coming up, 50, like you said. For people that are starting out, it seems maybe a little pretentious that they're going to go outsource their cooking when they can hardly pay their bills. If someone's starting out on aligning to purpose, how can they make that first step?
Well, your purpose is an expression of your highest value. Your ontological identity is an expression of your highest value. Your epistemological pursuit of knowledge is according to your highest value. That's the most key element. So if your life is not demonstrating what you say is important, what you say is important is BS. So that's one thing. People have this idea what they confuse fantasies with what they really value. I've seen this about 99% of the population. So most people, if you ask them, I want to be financially independent. Oh yeah, I want to be financial. No, you don't. You want to spend your money on the lifestyles of rich and famous and consume, depreciables instead of actually saving and investing and putting your money into asset accumulation that's going to patiently build wealth. Or you'll be on your way, buddy. People have fantasies about what they think they value, and they confuse that with what's important. So your hierarchy of values is dictating your destiny, and your highest value is the path of your purpose. And it's the most efficient, effective pathway to fulfill the greatest amount of voids with the greatest amount of value in your life. That's why it's so fulfilling. That's why when you do that, things start to kick into gear and work. Now, the people that go around and say, I don't know what my purpose is, they're not willing to look honestly at what their life is demonstrating through a drone's view, looking down on them. They are too busy filtering their reality based on what they think it should be, ought to be, supposed to be, got to be, have to be, must, need to be, from some outside authority that they're infatuated with. We're not here to put people on pedestals and minimize ourselves. We're here to put ourselves in a heart and basically do what's truly meaningful to us. And that's not putting people on pedestals or pits. That's putting them in a heart and getting on with what's meaningful. So I look at what your life demonstrates is important to you, not what you say. Because 99% of the time, I've been doing value determination 45 years. 99% of the time, people don't know what's really important to them. They think they do. But I've developed a method on how to determine that and get past the BS. It's not hard to do. It's about 30 minutes of work. But boy, is it eye-opening. Because you got unconscious motives making you do things that you don't know. I've never seen a person sabotage. I've seen people think they sabotage because they think they know what's important, but their life is demonstrating something different, and they're just fantasizing what's important instead of being true to what's important. And then setting goals that are matching what's really important, you will excel. You will take off the second you do. That's why I want to find out what that is, because the purpose is always there. It's there, but what we do is we compare ourselves to others and we miss out on it. I'm amazed. I had a lady in London at one of my breakthrough experience programs, which is my signature program. I've done 1,158 times. And this lady comes up to me on the second day of the program. She says, and we're sitting down and I'm outlining step by things that a person can do about your purpose in life. And she said, well, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my purpose is. And she's whining. And I said, stop. I got to stop. I said, what do you do every single day that nobody has to remind you to do, that you absolutely love doing, that you're inspired by? I don't know. I can't think of it. I said, stop. Just stop. Quit whining. Answer my question. Be accountable. I don't ask questions. I don't have answers to it. Look again. I said, what do you do every single day that you love doing, that you're inspired by, that you do every day that nobody has to remind you to do? And she said quietly, looking down, she says, I love spending time with my kids. I am definitely with my kids every day. I said, great. So if you looked at how you fill your space, would you say your kids are in your space most of the time? She goes, yes. Would you say that on most of your time of your day that your kids are in your time, most of the time you spend most of your time a day with your kids? Yes. Would you agree the thing that energizes you most is watching those kids develop and accomplish things and make progress and stuff? She says, yes. And if all of a sudden you look at all your money, is most of your money going to making sure that you're a good mother and taking care of the kids? She says, absolutely. I said, is that where you're most organized? She said, I got every day organized. I'm involved in homeschooling and I'm Okay. And would you say you're most disciplined on that? Are you reliable to that? Without a doubt. And is your dominant thought the thing you thought about the most, about how you want your life, and the thing that's coming true, would you say is revolving around raising beautiful children? She goes, yes. Is that what you visualize, being a great mother, watching your kids grow up and do something? And she says, yes. Is that what you talk to yourself about most? And when you converse with other people about most, is that what you typically bring the conversation to about your kids? And you ask people about their kids? He goes, you're nailing me. And is that what inspires you and brings tears to your eyes? Seeing them make progress and do great things, yes, brings tears to my eyes. And out of the goals you've had that are most consistent, persistent, is your kids involved in them? She says, yes. And when you learn anything, you're trying to learn about raising kids and being a mother? She says, that's mostly what I read. I said, your highest value is being a mother and being an inspired mother raising beautiful kids. She looked at me, she got teary-eyed. She said, is that enough? And I said, listen, Rose Kennedy from the Kennedy family, her mission statement I have in one of my books, handwritten by her. And her was, I dedicate my life to raising a family of world leaders. That was good enough. And look what she accomplished. I said, when I said that, she got teary-eyed, and I said, the only reason you're not acknowledging what it is that your life is obviously demonstrating is you're comparing yourself to somebody else. Who are you comparing yourself to? I think I know that, she says. There's a lady that's got a really big business, and she's also got 2 kids, and I've always admired her, how she can run a business and still have 2 kids. I said, does she have au pairs and nannies and people helping her? She says, yes. Are you really wanting to delegate to somebody else? She says, no. I said, you have a different set of values. If you compare yourself to any other human being on this planet that has a different set of values and you admire them and put them on a pedestal, you're going to minimize yourself in that area. But if you look in your own values and look at what's really important to you and look at your actions, you'll see you're congruent. And she said, that's good enough. I said, listen, you're a woman who's on a mission to raise a magnificent children to go do something extraordinary. She got teary-eyed and she cried, and she came running up and she hugged me. And she says, that's all I've ever wanted to do. She cried. Women all over that room were caring and getting Kleenex and going, oh, because they saw their life caught between comparing themselves to other people instead of comparing their actions to what they value most, which is where we excel. And the moment she did that, she quickly just poured out writing a magnificent mission statement of raising fantastic kids. And she was on track without judging it, finally.
Yeah.
But she was comparing. Anytime you envy somebody else and try to imitate somebody else and be second at being somebody else instead of first at being you, you're going to undermine the power you have to do something extraordinary.
Jeez, I love that. That's so powerful. And it reminds me of in about 2005, I did a process of writing down on my values in my life, and I'd never done that. You know, you get given values by your family, you get given values by the culture, but if we're allowed to download our values from the culture, they're not very healthy. It's like make money at all costs, be successful. They're very competition biased as opposed to collaboration biased or service biased. And I remember the first, I know my top 2, and I don't remember the others. My first one was gratitude. My second one was freedom. And if I think about my last 15 years, everyone that knows me, I wake up with this sense of surprise. I'm so lucky to be able, look at us. We got this incarnation. We have this moment. And from that energy, I have this effervescence to be able to complete anything in this life. And so I really can feel my values have guided me, but I chose them. And how rare is it for people to choose their values, Dr. Demartini? And you know, what else can people do? Can they write them down? How do they start right now?
Well, I on my website, drdemartini.com, is a complimentary value determination process that I developed for 45 years. And I've taken, I don't know how many, God knows how many people have gone through that now. But you asked a question that I still haven't answered yet, and I was getting to it. When you're living by your highest value, you have 3 components: being, doing, having. The doing is the service. The having is the reward. If you try to do service without reward altruistically, you eventually get peed off until you eventually say, I want something for this. And if you try to do reward without service, you're narcissistic, you get humbled. So nature is trying to create a perfect balance between service and reward, motor cortex, sensory cortex. If you do, you have now a perfect balance. If you look at where the brain is, right where the sensory cortex is on the back and the motor cortex in the front and the two hemispheres right in the center, directly down is the hypothalamus, thalamus, then the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, the very core axis of our manifestation. Right in front of it is the medial prefrontal cortex sitting there right at the ventricles on either side. If you look very carefully, we are designed to do great service and have great fulfillment. Service, reward, service, reward. If those are in perfect balance, we have fulfillment. If one side dominates or the other, we don't have fulfillment. We try to get something for nothing or give something for nothing. Something's not quite it. We're devaluing ourselves or overvaluing ourselves. The second we have true value and it's reflective of other people and we have sustainable fair exchange, if you do business with somebody that's trying to get something for nothing, you don't want to do business with them. If you do something, you give something for nothing, eventually you don't want to do business with them. But if you end up having fair exchange, you both want to keep doing business together. So sustainable fair exchange, where the sensory and motor systems are in perfect sync, and you're authentically doing what you love, helping other people get what they love, now you've got the niche. So Jeff Bezos, there's a little video online that he's being interviewed by somebody, and he's talking about the head of Sony and how Sony created a cause bigger than itself for the sake of Japan and became customer-centric. And he said that inspired him to make a customer-centric idea for Amazon. So he was basically relentlessly pursuing on the most efficient, effective way of satisfying the customer. So his focus was really customer-centric. And that really grew his base of people and clients. But he had that figured out, but he wasn't employee-centric. And so eventually the numbers grew and the quality of the environment for Amazon wasn't so ideal. And they revolted against it and created a Teamster union and said, no, we got to bring that in order. And so then he went from customer-centric to customer-centric and employee-centric. And then what's happened is the symptoms of the Teamsters was basically let him know that he was a bit autocratic and expecting them to do something wasn't fair exchange and got it back in fair exchange. And so now that's booming. And then all of a sudden, the stockholders are used to big returns. All of a sudden, that's knocking down their returns. And so now he has to be stockholder percentage balanced. And so then in order to do that, he had to readjust his net profits to himself until all the people were now getting a fair exchange. And when it did, the company grew even more. But when you've managed money and managed people and managed values fairly, you get growth. And so he had to go through and figure those out one by one. And each one creates symptoms as feedback to let him know that he wasn't being authentic. He was a little bit aggrandized and focused on the customer, but not the employee. And he brought all those things into equilibrium, and then that boomed the business even further.
Wow. I think that feels like a metaphor for our own lives. You know, how are we out of balance with maybe people pleasing too many people or doing other things, right?
Exactly. Every symptom in our life is a feedback to guide us to authenticity, to guide us to our mission. Everything is on the way, not in the way. Physiological symptoms, I've spent 50 years on that one. Physiological symptoms are guiding us to authenticity. Psychological systems are guiding us to efficiency. Business symptoms are guiding us to that, to our authenticity. Social feedback systems guiding us to that. Events that you think are tragic or comical are guiding us to that. Everything is guiding each individual simultaneously in this beautiful matrix to help people live authentically. That's what the feedback, that's the big lesson in life. The magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you'll impose on yourself.
I love that. And it resonates with me because it's this decision, either live like everything is a sign or live like nothing's a sign, right? And so your choice is everything is a sign. Everything is guiding you to deeper authenticity.
Yeah. Well, you have control of your perceptions, decisions, and actions. The mastery of life is the mastery of knowing which decision to do, to prioritize decisions, prioritize actions, or prioritize perceptions. If you prioritize actions, you're living by the highest priority actions and delegating lower priority ones. That's wisdom. If you're prioritizing perceptions, you're taking no matter what's happening in your life and finding out how it's helping you get your mission. If you prioritize that and link every action to your mission, it's all on the way. There's nothing in the way. And you've mastered the ability to see both sides of an event.
Wow. which is the ultimate in oneness thinking and takes you out of duality, which is the path of the spiritual path, right? To see everything as guiding you to a deeper sense of service.
Our authentic self is the soul, the state of unconditional love, the spirit of unconditional love. It is our spiritual path. It's the synthesis of all complementary opposites. Everything that's going on is nothing but a feedback to get us in the center between the yin and the yang, as they say, to try to put us back into homeostasis. Maximum growth and development occurs at the border of support and challenge and all other pairs of opposites in our perception.
So we're diving deep into spiritual purpose, connection, love, compassion, oneness. Let's talk a little bit about a real problem, which is addiction. And I think it's a hidden problem because people think addiction is, okay, hard drugs or heroin or cocaine. But addiction can be food, like you mentioned earlier. We eat because we're not on purpose and we just do it because we're filling up. Also, alcoholism has, there's a liquor store on the corner of every town, and we've normalized this as a drug. And then we have, people struggle even with shopping addictions or just buying things to make them happy. How does purpose and health and addiction overlap? And what do you think are the core feeders of addiction in the modern world?
Well, I have addiction process that I help people with. And maybe if I went through that and share with it, the first thing that I do is explain to the individual that's claiming to be addicted to something, it may be any of those things: sex addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, whatever it may be, food addiction, consumerism addiction, whatever. An addiction is a label that somebody who doesn't do what you do as much as you do and is offended by you doing it labels you. A guy that drinks just as much as you and has a good time when they drink doesn't call you an addict. They call you a friend.
Yeah, it's true.
So first of all, is if you're under the assumption that you're an addict, just know that you will never make a decision in life to do something unless there's more advantage and disadvantage in doing it on a conscious or unconscious level. And most people are not conscious of their motives. There's a whole lot of unconscious motives in people. So the first thing I do to make unconscious motives conscious and people are addicted is to ask them, so what's the benefit of getting out of drinking or their drugs or their consuming or shopping or whatever it may be? What's the benefit you're getting? And they'll tell me at first, because of all the social programming, well, it's killing me. It's messing up my life. I know, I heard all that. But I'm just asking, what's the benefit? And they go, well, I don't know. I can't see any benefit. That's why I'm asking for help. I said, I know, but what's the benefit? And I want them to come in and identify the benefits and keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it until they become cognizant of what they're doing unconsciously and why they're doing what they're doing. Let me give you an example. I was asked to do a reality TV show, right, for Universal Studios a number of years ago. And they gave me 12 people to transform the lives of 2 hours each in 24 hours. 24 intense hours to transform 12 people's lives, 2 hours a peep, an individual. Okay, this is intense, right? Well, there's a lady that comes in there, and she's not yet the person I'm working on, but she's next. And she walks in with two big boxes stacked up on top, walk in with food. And she says, I brought everybody food in case we ran out of food and everything else, and then went on to eat the friggin' boxes. Not everybody else. She ate them all. This lady was giant. And she's my next client. And I asked her, I said, all right, I got one question. So we only got 2 hours here. What is the number one benefit you're getting out of eating? She said, I'm not. That's the problem. I need help. And she wanted to run all this stuff. I said, I'm not interested in all that. I'm interested in answering my question. So be accountable and answer the question. What's the benefit you're getting out of it? I can't see any. I don't know. I can't think of any idea. Answer the question. Finally, she says, after 5 minutes, everybody in my family is big. If I'm not big, I'm not part of my family.
Oh.
And she got a little teary-eyed on the side, just a little bit, and got a little Kleenex and just kind of wiped it off. I said, great. What's the next benefit? And she said, wow, my sister's really big. And she used to just beat on me and push me around and control me. And I made a commitment when I was very young. I would never let my sister push me around and beat. I'm always bigger than her. I went, great. That's number 2. Keep going. What's the third benefit? And then all of a sudden, she really got teary-eyed. And she said, whoa. She shook. I said, what is it? She said, I went on a crash diet one time and lost 45 pounds. And the first time in my life, I had a tiny bit of a, hourglass shape a bit, because I was round. And I started to have a bit of a female shape. And a guy came on to me, and the first guy in my life. And I had no idea. I thought I was in love. I was naive. And I thought I found the man of my dreams. Nice looking guy. Anyway, we made love. I never saw him the next day. Gone. Poof, disappeared. And 6 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant.
No.
And I'm a Catholic. Now, I have a moral issue. If I have an abortion, I'm going to hell, right? Because of all of my programming. And if I keep the baby, I'm already in hell because I'm now with the child of somebody I don't even know and don't even want to even look at again.
Mm.
So she said, I was in hell over that decision of what do I do? Do I abort the child? Do I keep the child? A moral dilemma. It's the most painful, most stressful, most trying experience of my life having to deal with this.
Mm.
And I associated that with weight loss. So I was making sure I protected myself from never being trapped by a guy again. And I said, so that's the third benefit. Keep going. She says, I'm in the TV industry a little bit, and I actually, from the breast up, look at my hair. I've got beautiful hair. I've got nice, beautiful skin. It's puffed up and nice big breasts, everything else. And you don't see the rest of me because we set it up where you don't really see that. And I'm on TV and I'm kind of animated and stuff. And she says, but when I try to lose weight, if I do, my skin sags. I've stretched it too far. I don't want that. So I make sure that I keep it always smooth because everybody acknowledges me for my smooth skin. So I make sure I keep weight on to keep it puffed. I went through and we got 79 or 78 different benefits out of her that brought many of them tears to her eyes that she was unconsciously driven to do. And she finally said to me, she says, I really don't have a motivation to lose weight, do I? And I said, as long as you have more advantages and disadvantages keeping the weight on an unconscious motive basis, you're not going to. She says, well, anytime I try to eat a certain way and try to raise my metabolism, somehow it goes back the other way. And it's like protecting me. It's keeping me my weight on. I said, I know. So I want you to go home. I'm going to work with you again tomorrow. I want you to go home and keep writing down all the unconscious motives. So she did. 150 friggin' of motives she found. She came back in the next morning. She says, this was mind-blowingly awakening awareness in my mind about what I'm doing in my life. I said, now, we're going to go to each one of those things, and we're going to write down 4 or 5 viable alternative ways of getting those same benefits without eating. So how can we now be with your family without having to eat? And she said, wow, that's an interesting question. I never asked that. I've always assumed family eating. Yeah, there's things we can do. Sometimes we go to church. When we're going to church, we're not eating, but we're with the family. And sometimes we go and spend time at grandma's. We're at the family, but we're not necessarily eating because we don't really like to eat there. We usually have her come and eat at our place. And so we made a list of viable alternative ways of getting each of those benefits. That was 750 benefits she went and did, or viable alternatives, I mean. When she finished that, I said, now let's go find the ones that were common. There were repeated, series of them were repeated. And we found the ones that were most common down to least common. We found 5 that were most common alternative behaviors to get the same amount of benefits without having to eat. And then we found and determined her values, her hierarchy of values based on what her life was demonstrating, which is I'm known for. And then we linked those 5 alternatives to that. And then we delinked eating to those values. Because if you punish somebody and judge somebody for their so-called addiction and they don't have a viable alternative, they get anxiety, they feel bad, and they go into amygdala and they go and eat more. So I basically found a way of taking and find viable alternatives, linking it to their values, then delinking and finding the downsides of the behavior of eating to get what she wants in life. And then we went and did what I call a inventory on all the things that she wants to accomplish in her life and how is the new style, the new things helping her fulfill what's most meaningful to her. Then we took the subdiction. There's never an addiction without a subdiction. Whenever somebody's got to have something, they've got to get away from something. If you don't find out what that subdiction is that they're trying to get rid of, that's the thing that they're dissociating from, to creating an ecstatic association addiction to counterbalance it. So we found out one of the subdiction was the memory of that situation with the guy, the memory of the beating of her sister, the memory of feeling rejected by her family. And we went and did what I call the Demartini method and cleared that baggage. And that's going in there and reframing what happened in each of those situations until there's nothing but thank you for that. Because if you don't have that subdiction cleared, the addiction's just going to keep manifesting. Because that's an alternative way of avoiding that pain. Then we went in and did the Demartini method, which is dissolving the resentments and fantasies that she's got stored in her subconscious mind, which forces her into the amygdala. Because it's the amygdala that's got that behavior. The nucleus accumbens goes firing off whenever you're in the amygdala, and you want immediate gratification and fulfillment and eating and consuming and anything that gives you a high, porn or whatever it may be, pleasure, whatever. And we go in and did that on all the things we can go through. So this was over about a 3-week period we spent with her, not just 2 hours. The 2 hours was unrealistic to get that done. 3 weeks. 98 pounds later, 1 year later, 98 pounds less.
Wow.
We didn't do any diet, didn't do anything, just cleared all the baggage that she had sitting in there. There were too many unconscious motives. Then we gave her nutrition. We taught her about nutrition. Then we got clear about what her purpose is, because if you're not doing something meaningful and purposeful on a daily basis, you're going to go in your amygdala.
Yeah.
You got to get your executive center online, not your amygdala online. And then you go in there and basically go through, and anybody you can't say thank you for in your life, go back and see how it served you and say thank you. Clear all that baggage out that you're storing. You do that, you're going to have some command of your physiology again.
Wow. Dr. Demartini, I love this. This is so profound. And it actually reminds me of when you ask this question, what benefits are you getting from your addiction, or what benefits are you getting from your illness? Because I remember there was a point in my father's illness where he was, I felt, blocking himself from being well because there was an outstanding insurance issue where he had to prove to the doctors that he was sick and he couldn't work. So he had to, there was this really interesting dynamics. There's all these ways that we keep ourselves sick as well. I'm sure you would transverse this idea over to how we keep ourselves sick.
Absolutely. I had a lady come in my office many, many years ago. This is probably 37 or so years ago. And she comes in, and an African woman wheeled in this very white-haired 60-something-year-old diabetic who had ulcers on her legs and was going blind a bit and having neuropathies and, pretty moderately to advanced stage of diabetes. And they wheeled her in my office, and I sat with her, and the lady that wheeled her in went back out at the reception area, and I chatted with her. And I had some amazing results with diabetes. I mean, because diabetes, there's the psychology behind diabetes without a question. And anytime you go and have perception of bitterness and arrogance and resentment or whatever, your blood sugar is going to go up from glucagon and your insulin's going to go down. It's a sympathetic response. It's something that's predictable, and you can actually do something about it psychologically. And I told her, I said, if you're willing to do what I'm asking you to do, I feel confident we can actually do something and get you back functioning again. But it's not going to be an easy ordeal. And she looked at me with a shock on her face. And then she says, Dr. Demartini, I believe you. I mean, I had a guy, they were about to amputate 2 legs. And 6 months later, they didn't have to amputate. A year later, they didn't have to amputate. 3 years later, they were healed. took 3 years, but that was an exercise, a dietary change, a psychological change. And he started becoming a jogger. I mean, his life changed and his physiology returned to normal. It was unbelievable watching it. And the doctor thought it was insane how he was able to do that, because most people don't take the time to do it. They just take the medicine and they take their insulin and they just keep eating crappy and they keep having bitterness. But this lady looked at me with her eyes and she says, Dr. Demartini, I really believe what you're saying is true, but I can't do that. And I was a bit shocked. You know, I was naive a bit. And I said, why wouldn't you be inspired by that? And she looked at me and she said, you know, the woman that's out in the front that wheels me in here? I said, yeah, she's my closest friend. She's my most loved person in my life. If I don't have a reason to have her, I don't have somebody to love in life. I can't do that. I really, if I'm honest with myself, I didn't come here to get well. I came here to make sure that you diagnosed me so I could continue to get my medication and my my insurance coverage and this and that. And I said, okay, that's fine. If you're ready, I'm here. But I respect it. I understand. Every decision you make is based on what you believe will give you the greatest advantage or disadvantage at any moment in your life. If you believe that the affection and love and attention of that woman is more valuable than you taking the risk of doing something different and then possibly being without that, which she had a history of in the past, the advantage of actually staying sick is more advantageous in her mind. That's why she's doing it.
Wow. Dr. Demartini, you're a force for good, a tour de force. This is insane. This is so profound. I think you're just showing that people are either opening themselves to healing or closing themselves to healing. And there's an awareness about it. Like you said, people are aware if you ask the right questions. Like you said, what benefits do you get from this?
Well, I had a lady, pardon me for this story. I was in the Merriam Hotel in Dublin, Ireland, speaking there at a bunch of talks. I had 3 or 4 talks there. And this lady was sent to me for a consult. And she came into the little lobby area. We worked right in the lobby of this hotel, this old classic hotel. And really amazing, she was 57 years old. And she says, I have been in pain all my life. I live with chronic pain. A friend of mine told me you could help me. And I smiled and I said, okay, great. What's the benefit you're getting out of having pain? Now, some people are going to be offended hearing this because they got chronic pain and they don't want to believe this. I get it all the time. And they challenge me and I challenge them back and I hold them accountable and then they grow. But this lady said, when I said that, she said, well, how on earth could there be benefit of pain? I said, no one will continue to do something unless they've got a motive for it. There's a thing called acute pain, which is neurological ischemic pain and cell injury pain and things that are real. And then there's glial pain, which is chronic pain, which usually has some intention, unconscious motives behind it. If you've got chronic pain for 57 years or whatever you claim, 50 years or something, there's a motive for it. So what's the benefit you're getting out of the pain? So go to a moment when you're feeling the pain. What's the upside? What's the benefit? And she goes, I can't find any. Look again. I don't see any. Look again. When's the first time you noticed pain? Oh, I was a child. Go back to that. What was the benefit you got out of it? And all of a sudden, she just went almost white. And she goes, my sister was very good looking. My sister was very bright. And she was amazing in sports. She was like the superstar of the family, and my parents were always admiring her and acknowledging her for being such a great girl. There's no way I could compete with her. The only way I could get attention and primary focus of the family was to get sick or injured or get hurt. And she looked at me and she said, Dr. Demartini, is it remotely possible that I've done that all my life? I said, you tell me. She started crying and she goes, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. I said, I was. Not that particular thing, but I know that there's a drive in there. And I said, so what's the benefit you got out of it? And she said, I've got people to do things for me that I didn't feel confident about doing, and I didn't want to be embarrassed by knowing I couldn't do it. And so I just got by doing what I'm doing, that people took care of things for me. It's a strategy. People don't realize that these are strategies people use. They use pain or pleasure as strategy sometimes, and they're not conscious of it always at the first thing until you ask them this question. And then I kept working with her, and we kept finding benefits. And she started rattling them. All of a sudden, she wasn't resistant. She was looking for the benefits. I said, well, how did it help you socially? Oh, without a doubt. People always say, well, you know, it's amazing you can handle all this and you still keep doing things. And even though you're suffering, you keep doing and you care about us and you go out of your way and everything else. She gets acknowledged. I said, how does it help you and your family? Well, that's definitely it. They've always thought they go do things for me. It's a way of getting people to do things for me. And she goes, I've been doing that my whole life. I've got attention, support. People think I'm amazing for how I endure so much pain and still get things done. And she finally got up and she looked at me and she goes, that one question is the most eye-opening question in all the years I've been trying to solve this. And I said, right now, what's your level of pain? She said, it's interesting you asked. I'm not feeling it right now. I said, isn't that interesting? I said, give it a 1 to 10 scale. Where is it now? Where was it when you walked in here? About an 8. Where is it now? She says, 1.5. I said, you just had a kind of a catharsis, having a realization of what you've been repressing in your conscious level.
Wow.
Then Anaxagoras, 2,500 something years ago, said that pain and pleasure are lopsided perceptions. Balance them out and you transcend the labels. C.S. Lewis, the same thing. So we can change the ratio of our associations in our brain and change the perception of pain and pleasure. All we have to do is know how to ask the right question. That's what I love doing.
Oh, and I love your question, Dr. Demartini. I love it. What benefits do you get from XYZ? And people will say none, and then you sit with it, and then they start giving you the examples. I think it's really profound.
I got one more.
Okay,
I have to go too. I had a lady the other day that found out she has liver cancer, and it was not a pretty sight. It had metastasized to distant locations, and they didn't give her the greatest prognosis. And I said, okay, let's take a look at this. And, you know, what are you bitter about? What are you galled about? What's going on here? And she finally admitted, she says, I moved to another city for the sake of my husband's career. And I've been literally bitter to the bone over all my friends are gone. And now what's interesting is I'm now moved to a city I don't want to be in, and he got transferred again, and I'm now stuck in a city that I have no more friends, no close ones, no loved ones, nothing. And I am bitter to the bone, but I depend on my husband. I mean, I feel trapped. And I want him here with me. And boy, did she have a catharsis when she realized she was doing that to her physiology. And suddenly she did it because the cancer got him there and her loved ones there. Don't be surprised if we have unconscious motives. People don't want to hear that. They want to think they want to blame something on the outside, you know, a virus, they want to blame a false attribution bias. It's the chemistry, it's this and that. And in some cases it is. There's no doubt if you live in radiation all day, you have a higher probability of melanoma. You have a toxic environment, you have a higher probability of this. There's no doubt about that. But that's not the only factor.
No, I agree 100%. And even there's a new term now, instead of saying like the mind-body connection, they just say body-mind. It's one thing. It is one entity.
There's no separation.
No
You
separation.
can't change the physiology without changing the psychology and vice versa.
I love
They're
it.
inseparable.
I love it. This is so profound. This conversation has been really, really, really beautiful. I know it's going to wake so many people up. I'd love to, if you could just on the exit to this illuminating conversation, I'm very grateful for your time. If you could share with me, what is the one most important thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Because I bet everybody wants to know. You've been 50 years in this space. What's a practical way that people can start their day off right to align to their higher purpose, to their higher good, and to be more in alignment with a healthy, a body in homeostasis that's healing and free of pain?
Every day, and I mean every day, all these years, I keep a record of what I had the opportunity to be, do, or have that day. We could call it a gratitude list. You're already on it. This interview is already on it. I typed it right before I came on. And I keep records of that. I could show it to you. Keep records of that every single day of my life. The people I meet, the places I go, the things I get to do, the podcasts, the radios, the television, the movies, the books I get to put, everything I get to do, be, do, or have, I document daily. It just takes a few minutes, and I go to bed on that. And in the morning, I review that, and I have a series of statements I say to myself. And the one statement that I was told by Paul Bragg when I was 17 years old, when I told him I didn't know how to read and I had learning problems, he told me, "That's not a problem, young man. Every day, tell yourself this one statement: I am a genius and I apply my wisdom." He says, if you say that every single day and never miss a day for the rest of your life, sooner or later, the cells of your body will tingle with it, and so will the world. Well, I don't get out of bed for 50 years without that statement running through my mind. A genius is one who listens to their inner voice, follows the inner vision of their soul, and obeys, and lets the voice and the vision on the inside be louder than all opinions on the outside. That's what I do in the mornings.
Beautiful, amazing, incredible. Heed this advice, listeners of the Food Matters podcast. You're in the presence of genius here. And if you and or a loved one are suffering, please, please, please go to drdemartini.com or try out his questioning technique. I love it. What benefits are you getting from staying sick or addicted or unwell? And stick with it until something bubbles to the surface, because as he's proven in these conversations with these stories, there is a deeper element that potentially could be holding us back from our highest potential and service. Dr. Demartini, thank you so much for your continued work and presence. I've always known about your perseverance and consistency in this space, and it's an honor to speak with you today. And thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for doing that, and thank you for helping me fulfill my mission. You're helping me fulfill mine, as hopefully I'm doing for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
For everything that we've mentioned in today's episode, you can check out the show notes. There will be links and information there for you. And before I go, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to invest in yourself and be here for this podcast. If there's anybody that you can think of who could benefit from this information, please make sure to share it with them. We believe in the power of life-changing information, and it's especially powerful when it's shared from a trusted source. And finally, if you could leave us a comment or make sure to subscribe to the podcast, we would greatly appreciate that. It helps us continue to bring you this life-changing information, and make sure that you get all future podcast updates sent to you. Have a beautiful day, and thank you once again.